our donut sponsor. And this morning, Brent and Rack 59 are donating some gift cards that we'll be giving away at the end of the session. So, ooh, there they are. Starbucks and Brown's Bakery combination. So please make sure and stick around to the end, and please listen carefully to the presentations, because the winner of those gift cards will be selected from someone who listens very closely and responds to some trivia at the end of the meetup. So, so thank you both for helping to make this happen. Want to let folks know the basic structure of how this is going to work. We have a special message in just a minute from Danny Maloney, who will share some words with us. And then after that, we'll have Mike Crandall give his presentation for about 15 minutes at how to succeed at prospecting during this time. After Mike presents for about 15 minutes, we'll move on to about 10 minutes of Q&A. After those 10 minutes of Q&A, we'll move on to our next speakers, Andrew and Aaron with Weimer Brownlee, talking about financial planning and the things that small businesses can do at this time with their finances. So we're so grateful for these two speakers and these particular messages at this time. Normally our meetup is a meetup where we have entrepreneurs and startups pitching their new ideas or new products or services. But we thought the best way to serve our community right now would be bringing some expertise from our network and from our community to small businesses and entrepreneurs. So this is a special instance of 1 Million Cups for us, and we really hope that you find this content valuable. And so please make sure and know that you can use the chat feature in the bottom right. And whenever it's time to ask questions, you'll be able to use some of the features here to digitally raise your hand, or you can raise your hand in the screen. We'll do our best to try to see what everyone's doing and respond during that Q&A time. So I think at any time you have a question, you can drop it in, and several of us will be monitoring and doing our best to respond to those. And just one pro tip, if I can give one pro tip before we get started, when you send messages here, there's an option to send a message to everyone in the chat feature or an individual person. And just as a FYI, even if you send a message to an individual person, we as organizers get a download of all comments at the end. So don't say anything in an individual message that you don't want one of us to see at some point in time, right? This is not the point place. This is not Snapchat, all right?
Not that we plan to read all of those, but
I don't have any interest in that, but just so you know.
Sure we will.
Yeah, okay. All right, so with that, I think, did I miss anything, Susan?
No, you're good.
Okay, so with that, I think we're gonna go straight to Danny, and he's gonna share a special message for us to get started.
Okay, am I unmuted? Can you all see?
Yep, we can see in here.
What's that? Yep, you can. All right, great.
You're good.
Cool. So yeah, thanks for a couple minutes here up front. I just wanted to stop by and share something we're doing at Tailwind in case it might be helpful to all of you and your businesses, or any entrepreneurs or small businesses that you know. This is also, I guess in a way, it is kind of like a new idea or service because this is not something we've ever done before. And so it'll be a bit of an experiment for us too. But if you're not familiar with Tailwind, real quickly, our mission is to make world-class marketing easy for everyone. And in particular, our platform, it's a software platform that helps predominantly small businesses to better plan, create, schedule, execute, and ultimately optimize their digital marketing campaigns with a focus on Instagram and Pinterest as our two core platforms that we serve. So that'll be relevant in a minute here, but just wanted to share some insight real quickly. So a few weeks back, as COVID was starting to climb a bit in the US, I just sent a note out to all of our members asking to take a quick pulse, like, hey, would you please share how this is impacting you? We're thinking about ways that we could potentially help, and we want your insight. And at that point, it was interesting that even by March 13th, about half of the respondents were saying that they were concerned. And a small percentage were saying they were already in dire circumstances, right? Significant income loss or revenue decreases. And since then, we've switched to tracking this as as a weekly pulse. And just the most recent data I had access to from April 2nd last week, that had already shifted or has continued shifting in a negative direction, right? So just to share that context here, At this point, it's 85% of that small business audience that's saying, okay, we're concerned or we're in dire circumstances because of the COVID outbreak and because of the recession, and far fewer people who are feeling positive or optimistic about it. So, I personally spent a good deal of time talking to dozens of our customers, hearing more about their stories. And what was clear to me was there were some very consistent needs. And they generally fell into two buckets. One was financial support. So how am I going to pay my team? How am I going to pay my bills? Top of mind. But also, how do I hang on to as much revenue as I possibly can during this period and emerge from the recession as strong as possible? How do I find inexpensive solutions to get by? And then a whole bunch of types of educational support questions, right? Like, how do I take advantage of the new programs that are available? How do I cut costs but not cut too deep? How do I know what is too deep or isn't? How do I keep my customer relationships active and so forth? But it was like, hearing these themes over and over again. So our team took this back, thought through it, and the general sense we had is, okay, beyond what we are kind of, focused on our mission every day, we feel like there's almost like a bigger calling here right now to do everything in our power to help small businesses. So there's a couple of things we're doing that I wanted to share. The first is we're establishing our own relief fund. We're starting it as a $1 million small business relief fund. And what we're focused on doing here or hoping to do is stimulating a revenue multiplier effect with that money, right? So we're giving away free access to Tailwind software in order to enable small businesses to continue to engage their customers and their community, continue driving traffic and sales through this period. Because one of the biggest things we think a lot of businesses will do wrong is just stop or like be frozen in fear. And so there's something to like, how do we encourage people to just keep pushing through and continue to nurture those relationships that they've worked so hard to build, or continue building them. And so we're hoping that $1 million could ultimately create a much larger impact on the businesses themselves, which will then filter down into those communities. And then the other thing is, from the educational perspective, we've started a Survive and Thrive webinar series. We're doing it through Facebook Lives, but it's basically like free weekly courses where we're bringing in experts on various topics that SMBs are going to have to tackle to get through the recession and to ultimately emerge stronger. And we're designing sort of like worksheets and downloadables to go along with those, so people can take the principles from the various courses and then come back and think, okay, how do I apply this to my specific business and my specific situation? So we've had 2 installments of this so far. The first installment was already viewed like over 30,000 times. So we're seeing a lot of demand out there where a lot of small business owners or entrepreneurs are just feeling like, hey, I just need to know how to do this because I've maybe never done it before. Maybe I've never had to live through a recession. So, with that, you all are actually getting a sneak peek at this, especially the relief fund. So we're kind of doing some soft launch pre-wiring here in the Oklahoma City community in order to give folks a chance to apply early, because once we do launch this nationally, and especially to our member base, we're expecting that applications will roll in very quickly. So that's part of why I wanted to hop on and share it. Overall, our goal here is to help over 22,000 small businesses within the fund. It's really best suited for companies who are using Instagram or Pinterest already to engage and attract customers, or who want to start doing that right now. Because that we're giving Tailwind software is what we have to offer, and that's what we serve. So if that's irrelevant to the business, we're not going to be a ton of help, but there are a lot of businesses that is relevant for. And ultimately, what grant recipients are getting here is free access for up to 3 months. Generally, it'll be 3 months. There might be some exceptional cases there for various edge cases. But the other thing we're going to try out here is that each business who receives a grant can actually give 3 grants to other small businesses that they know and love. And so part of this is kind of creating a pay it forward mentality, where even if that small business is in tough times right now, they can show appreciation for their customers, vendors, others in their community, the restaurant, the coffee shop they love to go to that's had to scale back operations, whatever it is. And honestly, part of it's because we're a small business too, and processing 22,000 grants would be a pretty heavy lift for us. So this way we process maybe 5,000 and our customers can give away the other 15,000, the recipients can give away the other 15,000. So we haven't formally launched this publicly yet, but we're going to any day now. But for now, if you all want to check it out or you know anyone who could benefit from this, there's a bit.ly link that they can go to jump straight to the application. It's just bit.ly/tailwind-COVID, and that'll get them there. And I can share that in the chat if you need access to it for later. But yeah, that's what we're up to. We're really excited about the opportunity to just help a bunch of folks during this time. And we're a little bit scared about what it's going to take to administer a program like this. It'll be trial by fire, but we'll figure it out as we go each day.
Awesome. Danny, thank you so much. Woo! I think everyone's muted, but I bet if we weren't, you'd hear a lot of people applauding and saying thank you. That's a pretty incredible message. So Danny, thank you so much for starting off with that. Virtual snaps.
Thank you.
All right. So Danny, when you're finished up, oh, you just stopped sharing. So we're going to transition now into our two main speakers for this morning's event. So first up, we'll have Mike Crandall with Sandler Training, and then like Mike mentioned earlier, we'll have about 15 minutes, and then we'll have time for Q&A with the group. And then we'll transition to our second presentation, which is Andrew Gaskell and Aaron Waters from Weimer Brownlee. So you're going to hear more about sales and marketing and prospecting, followed by some more financial advice from our experts. So special thank you to these presenters who put this together pretty quickly for you guys and for us, so we could offer something valuable to 1 Million Cups participants. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Mike Crandall with Sandler Training.
Susan, thank you, and Mike Slack, thank you for the invite. Danny, I'm not super familiar with your organization, but that's awesome what you guys are doing, and there's a word that you use multiple times in there that I think is so powerful, and it actually ties into what I'm going to talk about from a prospecting perspective, and that's the word help. And so we'll come back to that. So Danny, kudos to your team and you for what you guys are doing. But so super quick, for those of you that might not be familiar with my organization or myself, we provide coaching, consulting, and training primarily around 3 verticals in an industry. That's leadership, management, and sales. I've known Mike Slack for quite a while, and Mike asked me to come back and speak to 1 Million Cups specifically around prospecting today. So I'll spend a few minutes on that. I'm honored to be a return speaker. You guys had me speak probably 4 years ago. It could be, I couldn't tell you exactly. And my topic then was the one thing every business needs to succeed, and that one thing is revenue. And that's as important today as it's ever been, and maybe even more so. So for those of you that are in a situation where you can take some notes, I encourage you to take some notes, because I'll give you some very specific things, whether they're mental or tactical today in our time, and that'll be helpful to you. So a little framework around this. I have been on 50 to 60 webinars as a subject matter expert in the last 2 to 3 weeks, all on sales management, leadership topics, and prospecting and sales is obviously a super hot one right now. I've been in the business world long enough to have seen a lot of highs and lows. I was in the business world through 9/11, and I watched the world stop for about 90 days in most industries. Lots of similarities, some differences to right now. I was in the business world in 2008 when the financial collapse happened, in 2012 when we had some challenges. So I've been around a lot of stuff. Some of you, based on your age, haven't been through any bad times yet. If you didn't enter the workforce until 2010, 2012, you actually haven't seen a problem, because from 2010, 2012 to now, we've been on a pretty good run. That here's the thing that we know in the help that we provide our clients is that anytime there's a challenge, there's 2 ways people will come out of that challenge. There are people that will come out better and stronger, and there's other people that will not come out. And that is 100% a choice on what you choose to do. So super high level, if you want to come out of this situation better and stronger, there's 3 things you need to do. Number 1, and first and foremost, is that you need to adjust all of your prospecting. And I'll come back to that one. Number 2 is that you need to focus on what you want to learn, grow, and get better at. And that doesn't matter whether you're the CEO or somebody else in the organization. What do we want to learn, grow, and get better at? And then number 3 is that you should be very focused on that I'm going to do it someday list. We've all got that list of stuff that we said, hey, someday I'm going to do this. We're just going to talk about the prospecting today. And I always tell people to get better at prospecting, there's 3 keys, and you should probably write these down if you're taking notes. Key number 1 is mindset. Key number 2 is intent. And key number 3 is goals. I have to have the right mindset. I have to do it with the right intent. And then I have to set specific goals around that. Once I've got that, the 3 steps to prospecting are this. Step number 1 is I should have a really good list of who do I want to talk to? And I'll go deeper into all of these, but who do I want to talk to? Step number 2 is how am I going to start that conversation? And what I mean by how is, do I have their cell phone number and should I call them? Should I start with a message on LinkedIn? What's the how of that start? And then number 3 is what's the conversation? One of the most important things to keep in mind is that prospecting is not selling. I want to say that again. Prospecting is not selling. One of the greatest mistakes we see people make is that they think that prospecting is selling, is that they're going for a sale. Prospecting is simply figuring out, when I visit with this person, is it someone that should continue in our process or not? Because if we're not a good fit for each other, we should figure it out as fast as possible. I've got clients who've taken their sales cycle from 24, 36 months down to weeks by focusing on prospecting better. Everybody on this Zoom call has the ability to get better at this regardless of what your business is. Now there's 3 keys that we like to tell people are part of this, and there's 3 pairs of words. I encourage you to write these down, and then I'll spend a few more minutes going deeper into these. Key number 1 is that good prospecting is proactive. Proactive. And what I mean by that is that it's proactive, not reactive. Setting a post out on Facebook and hoping people reply is reactive. Picking up the phone and doing something that I have control of is proactive. Number 2, it needs to be intentional, not accidental. Intentional, not accidental. And key number 3 is that it should be focused on help, H-E-L-P, not selling. One of the things that we do in our organization frequently is we do lots of research. We actually got an entity that's called the Sandler Research Center. Harvard and other entities actually use our research now. It's all about sales management leadership. A lot of it in the last couple of years has really been on the client journey and what truly matters. And it's amazing how we put up our defenses if we think on any way, shape, or form, on any level that somebody's trying to sell us something. So bad prospecting looks like this. Hey, Susan, what do you need this week? By the way, that's bad at any point in time. It's way worse during this crisis. Way worse. But what does help sound like? You know, Susan, I don't know that we've ever met in person, but if I were to touch base with you, it would sound a little bit like this. Hey, Susan, this is going to sound a little bit crazy, and you probably don't want to hear from my organization, and that's okay. But I was simply calling to see how your family, your team, and you are doing. And it's amazing how that type of approach will start conversations. So let me share with you a specific story. I've got a client who's a financial advisor. When I say a client, he's only a couple months into a couple-year journey with us. Our world is really about retained growth advisement. I've got people that have been on retainer with me for over 10 years now in running my business. He called me up a couple weeks ago and he asked for some help on building his prospecting plan. And so we helped him make a list. He's technically got 2 lists, a list of existing clients and a list of other people in the business world that are not clients of his, but he's had some interface with. He has 2 prospecting activities he's hyper-focused on right now. One are check-in calls. Check-in calls are an activity that I do with people I already do business with. Sounds like what I gave is that example. And Susan, this is being recorded, right? So if people want to listen to it again, they'll have these wording. Good deal. Right. So that check-in call is for people who I've already got a business relationship with. The second that he's got is what we like to call touch calls. Touch calls are for people that I might have connected with in some way, shape, or form, but I don't necessarily have a formal business relationship. So he built his lists. Who do you want to talk to? Then he built talk tracks. Talk tracks are outlines of words that I can follow. Now, outlines of words are crucial for success. Scripts are terrible. There is no worse thing in sales than trying to follow a script, period. From a pure psychology standpoint, we cannot follow a script and be an active listener. That's why scripted actors get multiple takes in actual acting. The most talented actors are generally impromptu or live actors. They don't get second takes. But a talk track allows me to say, what's my funnel of conversation going to be, and how do I make it comfortable? And then we practiced these talk tracks several times over and over and over again. Here's what's been happening in his world. He's only been a financial advisor for a few years, so he's got some existing clients. Part of his prospecting is checking in on people that he's already got as a client. And part of that prospecting is then also, after he has the conversation about how are things going, asking the question, is there somebody in your family or friend circle who doesn't have a financial advisor who can answer questions or isn't checking on them? And he's gotten dozens of introductions in the last couple of weeks. That doesn't mean they're all going to turn into business. And some of you on this call are in financial advising. Most people don't jump and give you all their business fast. But here's what's even been more impressive. His touch call list, which are people that are not clients, but people that he's had some interaction with. Maybe he met him in a networking event. Maybe he met him at some place like 1 Million Cups. And he shared with me that his greatest conversations have actually come from that. In the last week alone, he has scheduled 6 brand new Zoom meetings with people that are now prospects in his funnel. 4 of them, when he asked, why do you want to meet with me, all said the exact same thing. I've got a financial advisor, and he or she is not checked in on me. What I want you to be thinking about is probably the most important part of this. And Danny shared something when he kind of offered up what he's doing from Tailwind, which I think is awesome, is that business is still going to happen. My organization, we've closed business almost every day this month, or in the last couple of weeks during this. I've got clients that are closing business every day. I've got clients that sell into schools, which, think about the disrupted world that they're in, that are still selling stuff. But sales all starts with prospecting. And if you want to sell, you have to prospect. And what I'd encourage you to think about is that this is about being proactive, intentional, and focused on helping, and then building a cookbook. A cookbook is a prospecting list of activities and quantities, building a cookbook of what I should be doing, how much I should be doing it. And then we need to focus on what we always call the 3 Ps: plan, prepare, and practice. Plan, prepare, and practice. If I want to get better at prospecting, I can do it. Here's the interesting thing about a financial disruption or a challenge in the business world, is that there are people that are going to sit on the sidelines and hope it gets better. Those are the people that might not come out of this. There's other people that are going to go say, put me in, coach. I'm going in right now. And how do I make the most of this? So before I flip it to Q&A, I'll share with you, last week I had the honor of being on a webinar with Tom Ziglar, who is Zig Ziglar's son. He and I have become great friends. We've spoken at a lot of the same events the last several years, and he's got a lot of ties to Oklahoma, interestingly enough, because his daughter went to OU, and at Southern Nazarene down the road from me is the Zig Ziglar Center for Ethical Leadership. So Tom Ziglar shared with me that one of his favorite quotes from his father is, and his father, Zig Ziglar, has passed away, but sometimes regarded as the most profound motivational speaker ever. Think about this quote: expect the best, prepare for the worst, maximize what comes. Expect the best, prepare for the worst, maximize what comes. And when Tom shared that with me, he then broke it apart, because again, we were on the same webinar, and it was outstanding if you take that about. If I go into prospecting to expect the best, hey, I'm just going to have a comfortable conversation with this person. maybe not going to buy anything from me today. And depending on what you sell, it might be weeks or months before that sale could happen, maybe even years. But prepare for the worst. The worst could be that I caught them at a terrible time and I get cussed out and they hang up on me. They did not cuss you out and hang up on you because you're a bad person. They cussed you out and hung up on you because you had poor timing as a salesperson. In our world, we spend a lot of time helping people with the psychology of what goes on inside our heads. People don't get hung up on because they're bad people in sales. They get hung up on because they're a bad sales rep or they have bad timing. And we've got to separate those things in our mind. But that third part of his quote, maximize what comes. Think about that story I shared about my client that's a financial advisor. Some people are answering, some people are not. Some people are wanting to have a conversation, some are not. Some have concerns and questions, some are not. But he's maximizing every one of those conversations. And it doesn't matter what your business is, whether you're a fairly new startup or you've been in business for dozens or hundreds of years. Doesn't matter whether you sell a product or a service, whatever it is, you can work on prospecting right now. But it's all about mindset, intent, and goals. So Susan and Mike, I know we were going to leave a few minutes for Q&A, and I'm happy to do that. I'm kind of watching the clock here on my tablet that's in front of me, and happy to spend 7-10 minutes, whatever makes sense, on Q&A. And if anybody wants to reach out to me afterwards, I think you probably do a follow-up email. I'll make sure you can include my contact info in that, or you can find me very easily on LinkedIn if anybody wants to reach out. Any questions I can answer for people?
I have a question.
Yeah.
That was great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It was very motivational too. So what are the tools that you use for tracking the prospecting?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I always encourage people, if you have your CRM or if you have a CRM already, your CRM is a great thing. But if you don't, even an Excel spreadsheet, and again, it should start with who do I want to talk to, and just making a list. Hey, here's all the people I want to reach out to. Here's all the people I want to connect with. Here's all the people I want to attempt to have a conversation with. So when I help my clients build what we call prospecting cookbooks, most of the time it's actually an Excel spreadsheet because that tends to be pretty easy. Most people can do that. We also have a tool that we help our clients engage with. If anybody's got questions about this, happy to, called Sales Accountability. It's a software platform you can subscribe to, and you can put a cookbook in there to track your activities and your behaviors. So hopefully that helps, but there's a lot of different things there. If you've already got a CRM, you can do that. Usually in most CRMs, it might need some modification.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. We've got a question from Ben. He said, hey, Mike, what's a good tactic for turning a no into a yes? And how long do you fight that tension before moving on?
Yeah, so Ben, that's a good question. And one of the things that we're big fans of is a talk track that gives people permission to say no. You got to really think about why somebody says no. Is it a timing thing? Is it they're not the right person thing? And anytime we're fighting to turn a no into a yes, we may have already goofed something up. Entrepreneur Magazine wrote an article about our organization a few years ago, and they said that what we're really good at is helping people with conversational selling. And in that article, they talked about there's really two types of interactions we have with other people, sales or otherwise, is that it's conversational or confrontational. If you tell me no and I try and get you to turn it into a yes, we're having a confrontation. And so what I've got to understand and dissect is what's that specific challenge or disconnect. And so I don't know that there's an actual specific tactic. There's an awful lot of reasons that somebody might tell me no. But I think the first thing is to figure out, why did they tell us no? And is it even the right person, or is it someone that could even benefit from what we do? We see salespeople all the time that think everybody's a prospect. It's not true. There's some people, based on what we sell, they're not a good fit for a multitude of different reasons.
Great, Mike, thank you. I see a new question that just came in from Ben. If anyone else has a question, please jump in. Say, what's a hurdle your team has recently built around? And so that's first part. And then the second part is, you know, beyond spreading the word, is there anything your business needs right now?
Yeah, so two parts to that question. And Susan, Mike, I'm going to ask you to make sure we're monitoring our time because I don't want to go over my time. I want to make sure Aaron and everybody else has, Aaron and Andrew have their time slot. But so big hurdle for us recently is going virtual and digital. A lot of our business, we have a beautiful facility that we have people in every week. Normal week in our world, there will be somewhere between 100 and 200 business owners and entrepreneurs come through our facility. We can't do that right now because of all of the changes in government regulations. So turning into virtual. I have been on, like I said at the beginning, I've been on probably 50 webinars as a subject matter expert, but we're doing all of our coaching, consulting, and training on Zoom now. So becoming much more well-versed at Zoom and helping our clients adapt to that. I've got clients on retainer with us that range from 22 to 84 years old. And I've got clients that had never even heard of Zoom until 2 or 3 weeks ago. And so that's a big hurdle. As far as what does our business need right now, we're doing everything we can, a little bit similar to what Danny shared, to provide lots of things as resources for free. So the biggest thing that I would ask for anybody is take advantage of and spread the word about our free webinars. Every week we're doing 1 or 2, or some weeks we've done 3 webinars. Tomorrow we actually have a webinar that's 90 minutes. It's from 10 to 11:30, and it's on how do we get better at using LinkedIn, which is a prospecting tool. I can make sure that Susan and Mike have the info for that. It's a complimentary webinar. And if you want to share that with everybody, you're welcome to do that. But in all of our webinars, if you cannot join live, as long as you register in advance, we'll send you the link to the recording and all of the resources. But that's the biggest thing that I would ask, Ben, is just, you know, let people know about the resources. What we're seeing right now, and it sounds a little bit weird, is that because of the coaching, consulting, and training that we offer, there's a ton of people that are looking for help. We've had more people download or subscribe to stuff on our website in the last 10 days than in the last several years combined. There are people looking for help. Depending on what your business is, they may even be looking for the type of help that you offer.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. For everyone watching and listening, I posted a link to Mike Crandall's LinkedIn page in the chat, so feel free to add him there. We'll send out whatever other resources he wants to the group after the fact as well. So thank you again, Mike. Yes.
Yeah, super quick. If anybody sends me an invite to connect on LinkedIn, just let me know the source. My LinkedIn philosophy is only to connect with people that I've got some connection with. I get about 12 to 24 a day. So make sure you let me know that it's from this, and that's how we started to connect. Otherwise, I might not accept.
Awesome. So look for more resources from Mike and Sandler training coming up, but now we're going to switch gears, and I want to introduce our next presenters from Weimer Brownlee, Aaron Waters and Andrew Gaskell. And you guys go ahead and get your screen share set up, and the floor is yours.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much. So my name is Andrew Gaskill, and I know that Aaron Waters is on the call with us. We'll do just a quick intro, and then we'll dive in so that we're respectful of our time. So I'm the Director of Financial Services at Weimer Brownlee Wealth Strategies, and Aaron is a Senior Wealth Advisor with the firm. Weimer Brownlee, it's a holistic financial planning firm with a focus on individuals and small business owners. We do a lot of value-based financial planning with our clients, and really what that means is we want to know what makes you guys tick, and we want to know what your goals really are, as opposed to just finding products that we can provide to you. So it's a really consultative approach that we take to our planning with our firms and our small business owners. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. So we put together a lot of topics that small businesses may want to take advantage of or look at as they kind of go through some turbulent times. And one thing that I didn't have listed, but per Mike's presentation, which was awesome, by the way, crisis does tend to bring out a lot of opportunities. People start to get really critical of the people that they work with or the tools that they use, because they're either being conscious of cost, or they need somebody who's willing to be proactive and reach out to them. So It may be difficult because we're so remote, but I think now is a really, really good time to just touch base with people. And it really does provide a lot of opportunities that we might not have had before. So something that we hadn't mentioned, but I want to piggyback on that. So really the first thing that I think that we can do is to just build a business continuity plan. Oftentimes when times are good, we don't think about what happens if there's a massive disruption in our firm. And something that we've helped a lot of clients do is just to put together some sort of a continuity plan. You guys are mostly in the IT world, but being able to work remotely is not something that a lot of people have taken the time to set up. So now's the best opportunity to revisit the way that we do business and ensure that we have a backup plan for the ways that we do business. Buy a Zoom, log in, make sure that you've got a VPN so that everything's safe if you're logging in from home. So put together a business continuity plan and revisit that every year, every couple years, and just make sure that you guys know the best way to do that work remotely. Adub?
Yeah, so the next one I think that's important to do is kind of look at what reforecasting this year might look like. I'm just going to take a wild guess, but I think probably things have changed since you first built your budget this year, and probably dramatically. And unfortunately, we're going to have to adjust what the rest of this year looks like. And so for those who don't know what forecasting is, most of you probably do. It's basically taking a look at your budget and finding out what has changed since you first put it together. You're looking at what your revenue was expected to be versus what your expenses probably are. This year, unfortunately, means probably a lot lower revenue for a lot of us. But forecasting, I think, should probably be really done every year because the opposite's going to be true in other years. This year might be a down year, but some other year you might land a big account or find multiple new prospects, and it kind of changes your overall picture. And so it's something we need to do on a regular basis. But for this year, as we go into some of this, we're looking at lost revenue. So what does that look like? Where can we cut expenses? Where in our budgets can we adjust to make sure that we are able to function overall? And things like most of us are probably working at home in our PJs right now and not taking people to dinner, not doing things like that. So your expenses are going to drop already. So just it's a way to take a look at it, to see where we're at, to make sure we're doing what we need to be doing to keep our doors open throughout the year. And so forecasting is also looking at it, but it may cause us to actually have to make some changes. And so that's the hard part. In years like this, we've got to change or adjust what's required and prioritize what expenses we need to do and kind of minimize the non-essential expenses. And I think Andrew will talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that really does lead into it. So as we're building our budgets, and a big part of our personal financial planning that does bleed over into business planning is maximizing the amount of money that we have, right? So building that budget. Aaron talked a little bit about adjusting our targeted profit. I know as small business owners, a lot of us pay ourselves with that profit distribution from our business. And that's probably, unfortunately, the first place that we have to cut because most of our expenses are for our core, the core functions within our business, our IT, our rent, our, tax expenses and things like that. But there are a lot of non-essential expenses that we can minimize. So, you're going to be really conscious about not taking people out to eat. You're going to be really conscious about the amount of money you spend on your travel, things like that. And then you really have to take the time to prioritize the remaining expenses on that list. So, marketing right now is probably a good investment, but we know that it is an expensive investment to make in your firm in terms of time or dollar amount. So beyond just minimizing those essentials, we really have to begin prioritizing what we have to do to keep the lights on today. And then what we have left from there. What do we do? What can we spend our money on wisely to take advantage of the opportunities that we have today? So it really just means taking a critical look at every line item in our expenses and just kind of moving forward from there. So budgeting is probably the easiest thing that we can do that doesn't take a lot of headache or technical skill, but it probably will have the biggest impact on what we do.
So I think prioritizing expenses really fits into minimizing, some of your other expenses. But basically, it's just making sure you only spend what you have to have. Start looking at what expenses can really be dialed back. Focus on the expenses that you must have. So that's your rent, your utilities, your payroll is usually your biggest expense, like Andrew had just said. And cutting back on things like meals, travel, new equipment. You may have to hold off on that new hire you had budgeted for. Things like that. And so we always want to make sure we're functioning and keeping the doors open. And those are the essential things to do. So here at Weimer Brownlee, we've kind of cut back on our travel budget. We've scaled back on what's available for marketing and sponsorships. We've canceled our company retreat and conferences that we attend, just to make sure that we're taking care of the people that need to be taken care of. And those are, for the most part, our employees. We want to make sure people have jobs and able to function like we should. And just overall, it's just kind of making sure we're refocusing on what it takes to keep everybody up and going on a regular basis.
So beyond just our budgeting tools, there are a lot of things that have come out from the government lately that small businesses can take advantage of. I know you guys have probably been bombarded with content from this, but I'll give just a little bit of a very high level overview. This is going to be pretty technical, and it's going to apply slightly differently to every individual firm, but there are ways that you can save a little bit of money or keep some cash flow in the business to, again, help that budgeting process. So first thing is to take advantage of some of the tax changes or some of the waivers that they've put into place. First thing is easy. It's the extended tax deadline. So if you do owe any money on your taxes, you now have until July on your personal returns to file for that. You always have the opportunity to extend, but this does give just a little bit of leniency there. A little bit on those tax deadlines too. I'm going to skip the second bullet, but the Social Security payroll tax deferral. So if you have employees and you're paying them about 6% of their wages and everything goes to the Social Security tax withholding, the government has allowed you the opportunity to defer the payment of that tax until you have to pay 50% of it in 2021 and 50% of it in 2022. But that does give you the ability in the short term to keep a little bit of that cash flow in your guys' bank accounts and in your pockets to pay for the expenses that you guys have to have. Again, it's not something you just get to waive, but you do get an opportunity to pay it over the next few years. Next would be some refundable payroll tax credits. So there's a variation of the ways that these things are going to go, but different acts allow you the opportunity to put employees on sick leave or some enhanced FMLA leave because they just don't have the opportunity to put in the hours that they can because they're teaching their kids school at home, because they just don't have the ability to work from home, but they aren't allowed to come into the office because you may not be an essential business. Some of these acts will allow you to continue paying them, but they come back to you in the form of tax credits. So you're not just paying them out of your pocket, even though they're not doing anything and there may not be enough revenue to pay for them. So make sure that you reach out to either your tax advisor or you can reach out to us. We've got HR and tax specialists who can help you analyze what those tax credits might look like and the ways that you may be able to take advantage of those tax credits. The next two are quite technical, and it will really depend on the business that you guys are in and the way that you guys are structured financially. But you can now take some net operating losses from 2018, 2019, and 2020 and carry them back over the last few years. That will allow you to potentially offset some amount of taxable income that you generated as a business. Again, this is really designed just to put a little bit of money back in your pocket. Also, you used to not be able to offset 100% of your taxable income. It used to be capped at 80%. But now if you show a net operating loss for the year, you're allowed to offset all of that if you have enough loss to carry back into years previously. So another way to take advantage of it. And then the net interest deduction, it basically just increased the amount of interest that you can deduct as a line item on your tax returns there. From 30% to 50% of EBITDA. Again, there's a lot of technical things here, and I would encourage you to find your tax or HR professionals that you guys either contract with or that you guys work with individually, because they're going to be able to really dive into how that affects you guys on a personal basis.
Well, this one's probably a big one for a lot of people, but it's how to get cash in your pocket. How do we make sure we cover these gaps right now from the start of this coronavirus to when this ends and revenue starts to pick back up and our economy starts to open up again. And so with Congress kind of passed legislation for fiscal stimulus and President signed it into law a couple of weeks ago, but they created a few ways to really keep small businesses afloat right now. The first is the EIDL loans and grants. So that basically stands for Economic Disaster Loan Programs. The loan program can provide up to about $2 million in financial assistance to small businesses and nonprofits. The amount you receive really is depending on your actual, what they would call economic injury. It helps cover payroll, fixed debt, accounts payable, and other expenses that were incurred just because of the virus. And so this is a loan. So it's got an interest rate associated to it. So for small businesses, it's 3.75% is what the loan is at. And for nonprofits, they've actually lowered that 1% to 2.75, and it can be paid back over 30 years. And so it is a way to get cash in your pocket and make sure we spread those payments out. So one of the big fears overall is that we get this big loan up front and then we're not able to, pay it back because revenue's not picking it up. They're spreading this out over long term to make sure we keep it reasonable for most people. This one is not a forgivable loan, but it's a way to just keep some cash, keep payments low, and make sure we extend it out for a while. The grant program is a connection to this. So the grant program is actually able to provide about $10,000 fairly quickly into your pocket. It's helped to the same thing to overcome temporary loss of revenue just because of the virus. This advance is really a quick turnaround. It's meant to make available in about 2 or 3 days after the application is successfully submitted and approved. This grant is a portion that is not meant to be paid back. The way the wording kind of is worded is that it is a grant. A grant is think of it as a gift, something that's not going to be taxed, that is just yours. It will be a part of the bigger loan portion. It's just you're getting about 10 grand up front or up to 10 grand. The SBA will decide how much people get based on their applications. And so this one's just a really short-term cash situation. So hopefully it's a quick turnaround. Both of those loans have to be applied through the Small Business Administration. I've talked with a few of the SBA preferred lenders around Oklahoma, and really the best way to do that is approach the bank where you have a current relationship at. There are a lot of people who are just trying to find it, and most banks are starting with their current clients first and then working towards everybody else. And so my first thought is to just go to your current bank, ask them, and then if not, always feel free to reach out to us. We can help kind of figure out what these look like and what's the best option for you. Obviously, feel free to reach out to us. Those are kind of the EIDL grants and things, but the big one I think most people have probably heard of is the Paycheck Protection Act, so the PPP. It's a loan that's actually a forgivable amount up to 100%. Doesn't mean that always 100% is going to be forgiven. There are a couple of stipulations, but this is meant to really cover debt obligations that were actually before February 15th. If you went out and decided you wanted to buy about 7 company cars in this April, it's not really going to cover that. That's not what this is meant for. This is to make sure we cover the bills before that. So debt before 215, employee salaries, mortgage interest, and rent. So kind of the basics, just to make sure we keep the doors open. The amount they're granting is kind of around 2.5 times your monthly business payroll average. And this, again, is a loan to start with. So it's got a 4% interest rate that there are no payments for 6 to 12 months, and then it's a 10-year loan after that. So it's, again, meant to make sure we get through this unfortunate time. And I think most of us, well, we're all in the same boat right now. So we want to make sure we get through that. And so they've extended to start paying, another 6 to 12 months from now. One of the key factors yep, Mike.
I was just going to say, we're about 4 minutes to 10. And so maybe can we make one more quick point and then I'll ask a couple quick questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. The last one is just a bridge loan. It's an express bridge loan from the SBA. It's meant for people who have a relationship with the SBA already to get 25 grand up front. It will roll into your loan very quickly, but that's what that one is. So.
And then really, I think the last ones that we've got here, and Aaron, I'll just wrap it up pretty quickly. So the one thing that we want to think about is to change the way our staff functions and the amount of staff that we have. But payroll is often our largest expense that we have. So finding a way to take advantage of tax rules, to take advantage of decreased revenue. And then the last place we look is how do we change the amount that we're paying in payroll? We always say that should be the last thing you do, but sometimes it's something we have to think about. And then the last thing is to build an emergency cushion into your budget. Most people did not think we'd have this type of disruption because it's not happened in any of our lifetimes before. So same thing that we say for our clients is have 6 to 12 months of emergency cash on hand, just in case you lose your job, you get injured, anything like that. Now's the time to really put that into play for your business moving forward, is to have that emergency cushion so that you guys can make sure to keep the lights on and make it a little easier on yourselves if we do have another big disaster like this. So we'll stop sharing and open it up.
There's one specific question that was asked by Christy Dotson. It says, I started my business on February 11th of this year. Would my business qualify for either EIDL or PPP?
Here, I'll take this one. So, Christy, technically, yes. What kind of the problem is that they're going to look at your budgets and your payroll and things like that. And when you've only had it for just such a short amount of time, there's probably not going to be a whole lot available to you. And so I've been telling a lot of people, it's worth checking out. It's worth having the conversations to see what we can get. It's worth applying. If you don't get anything, that's fine. But so I would do your planning and budgeting on not necessarily getting anything, but hoping for something, if that helps.
So we have 2 minutes left before 10. I'm happy to stick around. I don't know if Susan can stick around for a little bit longer to keep the Zoom meeting open. I certainly understand if a lot of folks need to go and run to their next engagement. We have three quick things to do. First, let's say thank you to Weimer Brownlee for an amazing presentation. Snaps, claps, thumbs up, all of that. Thank you guys very much. On a personal note, I do business with both Weimer Brownlee and Sandler Training, and just on a personal note, deeply grateful for them to be here and have found all the advice and expertise and professionalism of these two firms to be incredibly beneficial to me. So that's number one. Number two, we'd like to get a screenshot of everyone holding up their cup of coffee or whatever it is they're drinking this morning. And so if on the count of 3, we can all get our cups up and some of us will take screenshots. I'm going to try to do this and this. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you guys very much. We'll share this out. And last thing is we do have gift cards, Starbucks and Brown's Bakery from Rack 59. And so here's your trivia question. Get your fingers ready in the chat bot and we're going to monitor it. The question is, how much is Tailwind giving away in their small business relief program? What's the dollar value? $1 million. M. Rawls got it in basically 0 seconds. That was too fast. That's incredible. Way to go. And so thanks again to Tailwind for that. And M. Rawls, I think you and Brent Green can connect after this for transfer of those things. Now, I will say we do have one expert who's kind of a ringer who's in this Zoom call who asked a very interesting question. So for anyone who has time to stick around, I might ask his question, which is, and this is JD Baker, who works in the mayor's office. Is everyone here aware of Oklahoma City's small business continuity program? I don't have a lot of familiarity with that one. Aaron and Andrew, do you guys know about the small business continuity program?
I have read a little bit about it. I know that it's mainly focused on really small businesses, and I'll have to read a little bit more, but from what I know, businesses under about 25 employees that they've got, and then I know that you're going to have to be able to prove that you've suffered at least a 50% drop in revenue from this time in the year before. So this isn't for somebody who just had a small hit, but I know it's really focused on those really, really small local businesses who've been hit quite hard. I know that there's going to be a lot of stuff out from the chamber that'll help get some information on that.
Awesome, thank you. And since we have JD here, who's special assistant to the mayor, JD, do you have anything else you want to say about that? I went ahead and unmuted you.
Oh, cool. Hey, everyone. Yeah, Andrew's completely right. I mean, yeah, it's primarily for businesses that 50 employees or less. And yeah, that 50% drop in revenue between March 16th and April 15th compared to same period last year, a year ago. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the same thing. It's a small window of the application. It opened up 2 days ago and it closes next week, April 17th. So it's a small window. It's a one-time loan or grant, but there's low interest grant, no interest grant. There's an incentive program just to help with payroll. And there's also a technical assistance program as well. So but it's one time, it's $5.5 million that comes out of some bond money that voters have voted on. And we typically use it for business recruitment. But right now, if we're not trying to recruit business, we're trying to retain it. And so the council approved this last week. And so it's a really great program. And we're hoping to help the small businesses.
Where do they go to apply or learn more, JD?
OKC smallbizhelp.com. And I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you very much. I think with that, we are about ready to wrap up. On behalf of all the organizers on the call and Susan and myself, thank you so much for joining 1 Million Cups here in Oklahoma City. Our first digital one we're providing, hopefully help to small businesses and entrepreneurs. If you found this helpful, please do share about this on LinkedIn. Please do like our Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't think we have an Insta tweet page. Just kidding, Instagram. But we do have Twitter. So please follow us everywhere and make sure that you are attending our meeting next month. We will do this again digitally next month, unless something crazy happens, which I think something crazy has already happened. So we'll be here digital again, and really appreciate everyone's attendance, their questions. We will be sending follow-up information so that you have contact information for both Mike, Aaron, and Andrew and their companies, as well as I think the small business program that JD mentioned. So thank you all
and
very
one
much.
final note, we were streaming this live to Facebook. So if you want a refresher on any of the info, you will be able to find the video on our Facebook page indefinitely.
Boom.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Susan, I'm going to stick around for a second.
Yeah, sounds good. I have another Zoom meeting on this account at 10:30, but until then,
we're good.
People can hang out and chat.
Cool. Aaron, thank you so much, man.
Hey, you're welcome.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Great job, guys.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Grayson. Long time no see.